So I just flew back to Miami. I just got back to my apartment. Flew back from Virginia, unexpected trip. Definitely enjoyed my time there. And while I was flying back, you know, the flight path that my flight took, it rides right along the coast of Florida. So as we got closer, I flew into Fort Lauderdale because I couldn't find direct connections to Miami. And if you don't know, Fort Lauderdale is like 30 minutes from Miami. It's a fairly big city, so it's very nice. And I'm flying over the city and I'm looking at all of the buildings. And in my head, I'm thinking, look at God's creation. God created us, humans. And one thing that I love, I live in Miami, Florida. I live in downtown in a high rise building. I love human architecture because, it's like, it just feels like art. I don't know how, like, if I'm describing that well, but I'm the one that really appreciates big cities. That's why I was very drawn to Miami. And when I'm looking over Fort Lauderdale from that aerial view, I'm looking at the buildings, these high-rise buildings right along the coastline. And in my head, I'm thinking, Florida is going to be underwater in the next 100 years. I probably won't be in Florida. Florida is probably not going to be crazy in the next 100 years, but I don't even know what tomorrow is going to look like. But the point is that each and every one of those individual buildings, hours and hours and hours of people's lives went into building those buildings up and also living inside of those buildings, working inside those buildings. The point is that there's so much time that was poured into each and every one of those individual buildings. And I'm just making the analogy in my head, like, time is so fucking valuable because whenever I fly back to Virginia, I grew up in Virginia. I moved from Richmond, Virginia to Miami, Florida. So, all my family is back home. And anytime I get to see my family, like, the time is so valuable to me because I'm looking at my phone and I get a flight notification saying, hey, your flight is in X amount of time. I'm like, damn, there's a time limit on how much, time I can spend with my family. So I grew up in an amazing household. My family blessed me. I was in a position where I really didn't have to worry about putting food on the table. Bills were taken care of for me. Like, I wasn't, born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but, I was definitely in a blessed position where I didn't have to worry about a lot of things that others would have to worry about. And when I was growing up, I was so ungrateful because I had no perspective of how valuable the things that I had actually were. The time that I was spending with my family, every single night being able to eat dinner with my family, how valuable that really was. Because I live in Miami by myself and having dinner by myself is just the norm. I wish I could eat dinner with my family every single night, but I didn't know how scarce that time was when I had it. Because I'm looking at my phone when I'm back in Virginia and looking at the flight notification saying, there's literally a finite amount of time that I get to spend with my family. I'm thinking that hours and hours of people's lives get poured into, just the example I told you where I flew over the Fort Lauderdale skyline. I saw all of the buildings and thought about all of the hours that construction workers poured into it, etc. I'm thinking they traded their time on this earth for money. And that money, I mean, even the check that they get from it is like, it gets taken out a little bit from taxes. You got to put the money towards food, gas, all the necessities, right? Like your rent, bills. And that little amount that you get left over is the money that you can spend on the things that you actually want to do. And people don't realize that. They spend that little bit of money that they have left over, and maybe they don't even have that money left over, and they're just pulling money out of, credit cards, just going into debt, and buying things that are pointless, that literally take away from their time on this earth. Nicotine, weed, alcohol, it all takes away from your time on this earth. I was having this conversation with a friend the other day. I was saying, like, Example, he struggles with not like he struggles with depending on alcohol to have a good time and socialize well when he goes out. And I was saying, like, bro, would you rather have to depend on alcohol every single time that you want to go out to socialize well, you know, have a good personality, be that bubbly person, don't have any social anxiety, don't care what other people think about you? Or would you rather build up your social confidence, work on yourself for the next couple of weeks, months, years, until you get to the point in a sober state where all of the time you're this high energy person, you're talking to everyone, and you just have this bubbly personality in a sober manner? And I said, which one would you rather have? Because what you have to understand is that everything that is good for you is wrapped in pain. If you choose option A, where you have to depend on alcohol to get that social experience and break that social anxiety, then you drink the alcohol. What happens the next day? You feel hungover. You feel good in the moment when you do the thing, but then you feel like shit after. But option B, where you go sober, it might suck the first couple of times you go out sober. You might get socially anxious, might not feel like yourself, might not connect well with others. And yet, you build that confidence over time, that delayed gratification, and all of a sudden years go down the line where you are this person that is high energy. And it's crazy to me how people trade in their time and their money, because you're doing both, giving into things that just take away your value over time. Like, you're just literally choosing the things that are instant for you right now rather than playing the long-term game. I'm always going to play the long-term game. My game is consistency and commitment. That is what I care about. And just the epiphany moment where I flew over those buildings, I'm like, damn, the person who bought that building, spent a fuck ton of money. Maybe took out a loan or something. Maybe it was a couple partners that invested into the building. But regardless, they spent, because you have to think about money. Like, it is like $20. If I'm holding $20 right here, I don't have cash on me, but that is a physical representation of an hour of someone's lives. An hour is generous. In fucking India, it's like a month of someone's life, which is crazy. Just fucking crazy. So, bringing this all together, in the biggest learning lesson I want you to take from this is that time is very finite. Money is limitless. Money is there's infinite amount of money. You have to detach from money. The more you can detach from, monetary success, the easier it will come to you. That's not financial advice, but just something that I've seen through my own personal experience. The more you detach from it, the less value you put on money, the less you want to chase it, the more it comes to you. It's limitless, bro. What is finite is your time. So instead of slaving away and suffering and suffering and suffering and sacrificing everything you have just for a little bit of money, instead of doing that, focus on yourself first. Just put yourself first. Get yourself in a happy state, because you don't want to suffer your way to the top. Of course, I'm not saying that you don't want to sacrifice, because either increase your sacrifice or decrease your desire, but you don't want to be suffering the entire fucking time. So enjoy your time while you have it and be grateful for what you have in the present moment, because you don't know how long it's going to last for. That's one thing that, this flight has taught me. One thing going back to my hometown of Virginia has taught me as well. Just a little insights after my flight, but I'm going to unpack, and I'm grateful for the time I spent, but that just makes me want to work 10 times harder to get that time back with my family. So hopefully you took some value out of this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.